Hi, it's Madonna Guy, and you're watching The Natural Alternative. I thought I would share this interview with Sasha Stone and Anna Mihalcea, a fantastic discussion about science, about frequency, about what's going on in the planet and how we have control in every cell in our body. Enjoy.
Hello, welcome. I have an absolutely fantastic guest today, and I'm so honored to speak with Sasha Stone, who's been a warrior for humanity out there for so long, and I've had the honor to speak with before. Welcome, Sasha, and thank you for joining me today.
Well, Dr. Anna, I'm very happy to see you again. It's been some months, but your voice is a remarkable one, and I'm the one who's honored to speak to you. Thank you.
So I mentioned to you in a sense, it's like, I wanted to touch base with you because you have so much overview of the current situation. You have fought for humanity in terms of, shining the light on, for example, the satanic human trafficking and all of that, and how it all relates to the larger picture and what we're really up against in regards to being able to get to a new world that we are envisioning. And right now, there's a lot of adversity. And I just wanted to hear your perspective a little bit about, what is your view? And let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, in the first instance, I'm a perennial optimist. And I have to say, I've been at this game long enough to be able to judge the success and failure of the so-called awakening, the truth movement, because I've been at it for, now 25 years this year. And my sense, my eagle eye view is that actually we are so much closer to emancipation than ever before. In real terms, that to me is what's actually manifesting in the field. However, in front of that revelation is what I refer to as a thaw, which is a kind of an early wave, like a shock wave that hits us before the revelation. And the shock wave is a very necessary and needful wave. It brings with it the imprints and the images at the subtle level of the Holocaust, of Armageddon, of apocalypse, of end of days. And that's a necessary element because it is the wake-up call. But in point of fact, I would suggest that you're the doctor, not me, but I would suggest that once we've identified that there is a wound and an open wound and something which is hemorrhaging and something which is life-threatening, we now know where it is and where it issues from. We can begin to bring about remedies. So to my mind, I'm an optimist, but to step back into the more sensationalist ideas of the shit show that we are witnessing at the moment, the collapse of Babylon, the systemic failure of all of the apparatus of dominion and control issuing from government and through the Catholic Church and the enclaves all around the world of the military-industrial complex, so to speak, the deep state. It's scary stuff. We have diabolical off-world intelligences that are arcane intelligences that possibly precede human intelligence by billions of years for all we know. Certainly, we now know because of the Pentagon files and even the Vatican's confessionals connected to the extraterrestrial phenomenon and the so-called UFO phenomenon, all of the sequestration of real information and knowledge about the technology, about the genealogical and genetic interventionism that has gone before, the cosmogenesis, as I refer to it. All of those subjects are now being rushed into the fore because we have no choice. We have to address them. if we look at the satanic infiltration and interventionism of the last 100 years alone of medical science interventionism, the synthetic molecule as it emerged through the basement of John Dee 500 years ago, in the basement of the black nobility, aka that diabolical slut, Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, and all of that psyop that was going on 500 years ago, which was, again, Catholic iconoclasticism, all designed to cult program us and to bring us into a slipstream of mutated consciousness. The emergence of the synthetic molecule began as the psyops began. So that infiltration of the human genome and the genetic expression, which has led to today where government itself is the prime sponsor of that medical science interventionism and the so-called vaccination program, the infestation of our biosphere with glyphosates and bariums and phosphates, all this evil chemistry, this diabolical chemistry, and of course the depleted uranium and all of this stuff. So we have this chaos which is embedded in every element and aspect of our entire reality, field of reality. That is the thrall. That is the very thing that is forcing the compression now of the diamond in the coal, the emergence of the angelic human. So I could look at the emergence of self-replicating nanodiodes coming out of human beings, and I'm one that believes that every single human now is infested with Morgellons. I don't think any of us do not have Morgellons. At this stage, we are all fully weaponized. And that to me is the D-Day. It's the line in the sand, because it comes down to the language of the subtle body that affects the waters in the cells, and the weaponized biosphere, which also affects the waters in the cells. So battleground zero becomes the temple of the human body. And right. Our consciousness and the degree to which we can cogitate the real reality as opposed to the false light matrix reality will determine whether we prosper or perish in that sense.
So you just absolutely summarized in 10 minutes what I wish every doctor on this planet would understand, and what I'm trying to tell them. That it's like, you know, the idea really, not, you know, this is a satanic technology. It is off planet, and people are not understanding that their cell phone, their all of their optical communication cables, the nanobots inside, this all came from Project Blue Book and way before. I mean, how did we, you know, jump from horse and buggy days to all of a sudden, you know, space shuttles and quantum computing in 100 years? And people are like, oh, you know, humans are just smart. No, the technology was given for a price, and now it's been weaponized. And I think what you're saying is just so important, you know, but I believe that people need to talk about disclosure, because it's intimately tied into the solution, because the solutions already exist. And how are we there in regards to being able to have a more open discussion? What do you think? Because you are also walking in those circles.
It comes down always to one thing, which is, again, the consciousness of the individual in the here and now, and the degree to which we are prepared to stand in the flame of truth and burn like hell to remain in that flame of truth. That's the alchemization process. It's a white hot flame. It doesn't feel good when we've been living in shadow and shade and going through galactic sleep cycles and multiple incarnations, and we are steeped in blood cult and cult programming and psycho-civilizational dystopia. All of this backdrop to who we are today is still there. It's part of this shade, and each of us individually have to awaken within that. And that's the relationship with self that has to be the source code or the square root of the emergent new earth, so to speak. And to me, again, it's perfect geometry, because people who are principally anchored in the language of fear, time, money, constriction, dominion, control, patriarchy, all of that, if that is the driving force behind the soul, then they are being pulled into a reckoning, and one which will impact them at the cellular level, to be sure, We know that actualized human plasma, or the auric, the energy form that issues through the subtle body of an actualized human, is essentially the reemergence of the angelic template. So that's the revelation, that's the grace of God that is now emerging or re-emerging as the immanent inertia behind all of creation. And it's down to you and I to receive that benediction or not. So the degree to which our consciousness is actualized, and we have relinquished this false light adherence to government, to Caesar, to mainstream media and academia, and all the mind fuckery of the totemism on the screen of life, that is all a diabolical construction or a construence to prevent us from moving into that immanence and that return to grace. So we have, let's look at America. Just America, middle America, the most beautiful people in the world in some respects. I regard them as being the pulse of humanity, but to a great extent also the most myopic, because they are holding on to a religious faith, which is an idolatry. It's idolatry far more than it is the living gospel. And this is a huge problem. And many good Christians are awakening to that now and realizing that evangelical bullshit was also part of the time and money and fear program, meaning to say the devil, the kingdom of the devil. So they're having to also relinquish their own adherence to their old structures and forms that they felt safe about before. Humanity as a whole is now having to, in a sense, have a reckoning with the fact that we have been worshiping false gods.
Yes,
Not the
right.
living God, not the living Christ, the living Messiah, the principle of the living gospel versus the dead words, spells, and bonds on paper that were construed by Babylonian priesthoods and invisible masters and midnight masons. And those invisible masters and midnight masons are the same operation. Let's say it's the same software that is being installed now, using chemical compounds and synthetic molecules into the human biology. Not just human biology, but actually the biology of all living systems is infiltrated by that chaos now. You couple that again with the fact that we are taking the knee to academia and to media still. Even those people who know that academia is an abject lie and that mainstream media should never be given attention, we are still forced to, because we are still living in Sodom and Gomorrah. 80% of the population is still living in the kill grid, in the cityscape, and the telecommunications, and the TikTok, and the Instagram, and the Daily Mail, and the Wall Street Journal are all part of that same kingdom of the devil. So we've tapped out of the one thing which offers us true remedy, which is the God-given human conscience, which always knows right from wrong and always knows truth from fiction. But we only get back to that perfect language when we step away consciously from Sodom and Gomorrah, make a determination that we are redacting, revoking, rescinding, and retracting the false contracts, the invisible contracts. With all of that, and we're now going to return to the eternal mother, to the Magdalene, to Tara, to earth, to nature, to natural law. That is, and of course, the idolatrous Christians regard that as paganism. So they're at war with that kind of language. This is the shit show that has been orchestrated perfectly at our time, civilizationally. It's down to the human conscience and the gut instinct.
Absolutely. So the question also is, we've been fighting out there the legal battles, etc. But you are endeavoring to bring truth out there. The courts and the underlying satanic grid work, where still we have 8 million children who are being disappeared, per year in America, and you can't get anywhere because everyone is owned, the government, the judiciary, and all of this stuff. So I think that people are somewhat awakening, but in regards to the pivotal change, how do you see that we can actually do it, other than you and I continuing to, brighten our own flame and going inward deeply to where eventually, the scenery somehow will shift?
Well, this is the language that is emerging in the last few weeks in my life. It's a consistent theme in the media interviews that I'm doing. It's the consistent theme at dinner tables I've been having in Hollywood and here in Mexico, and in Italy and in Indonesia, and in Spain, where I've been in the last 8 weeks. I've been in multiple countries, and the conversation is growing, and it's the same kind of conversation, which is the question that you've raised. But again, it always comes down to the fact that there is a mind virus in the world at large, which is far more endemic than the so-called spike protein and weaponized E. coli. The mind virus is the one which I generally refer to as liberal intellectualism. And this is the class of human who has been feeding of the crumbs on the table of these invisible masters, the kind of Davos Sabbateans, these grim midnight masons who've been orchestrating for hundreds of years the dominion of this earth plane, going back to pre-Sumerian times. So this is nothing modern. This what I refer to as Babylonian priesthood and the midnight mason is something that goes back for millennia, in point of fact. And our world has reached certain golden ages and zeniths of manifest creation. We were building cities, entire cities were being carved in the deserts in India and in Uzbekistan out of single bedrocks of granite. Those effigies still remain to this day. We have architectural wonders all around the world, principally in the Eurasian in the Eurasian arena. You have all of these incredible palaces and temples, which far outdo even the Gothic cathedrals in Europe. How did we build them? It's impossible. There's no possible way of having built them with tools and with men. So we know that we had ages before where we're only now cogitating the reality, the technological reality, that great big UFOs, arguably 200 kilometers in span, would come and would literally 3D print, or 4D print in the 3D plane. So we know now that so many out-of-place artifacts have emerged, especially in the last 100 years, giant fossils that have completely destroyed the taproot of this Cartesian, Einsteinian, Darwinian bullshit, which was indeed a software installed by the Masonic elites. So we're now caught up in this chaos. And all it takes is for us to move, as the master from Nazareth said, and I'm not a hard Christian, but I'm a great how do you say, I wouldn't say disciple, but I have a huge love affair with the messenger from the Nazarene, as I do actually also for the Mohammedan messenger in his day. Muhammad, peace upon him, went in and also destroyed all the idols in Mecca, in the Kaaba, and destroyed the Banat Allah in the desert. He said idolatry is the poison of the human soul. Liberal intellectualism is latter-day iconoclasticism. It is latter-day idolatry writ large. What are we idolizing? We are idolizing Moloch. The entire basis of our social economy and our hard economy is blood sacrifice, ritual sacrifice, harvest of humanity, sacrifice of innocence. It's written into the fucking Afghanistan war, and all the wars that have taken place in history, in point of fact, are a sacrificial rite. People like me many years ago and my foundation were doing the research and learning about the Babylonian sun, moon, and stars, and how those movement of the spheres corresponded with wars and battles that were being orchestrated on the ground, letting the blood of 200,000 young men at a time. We know that it's all about this invisible mastery who conducting ritual sacrifice of innocence to anchor into the earth plane a false light matrix. It gets a lot more interesting than that. When you look at what's coming up, Dr. Anna, on the 8th of April, 2024, which is happening in a couple of weeks from now, No one is being educated by the Wall Street Journal or by the Herald Tribune or by CNN or BBC. Nobody is being educated to the fact that this upcoming solar eclipse on the 8th of April, 2024, is actually the single most powerful cosmic event with the sun in the last 5,000 years. Now, why do they not want humanity to know what is taking place on that day? Well, that's because as the sun is eclipsed in full for 2.5 hours, more or less, that is the moment at which this umbilical is cut off from the outer sun, and we are forced into a reconvention with the inner sun for that period of time. That is actually a dissension event, which is so important because it means that humanity at the meta-genealogical level, at the level of subtle body and vibration, vibral light, we're able to commune with the central sun of the Magdalene, the eternal mother. She's going to be touching each of us in every atom and cell and molecule for the first time in 5,000 years and welcoming us home and saying, hey, children, have you enjoyed playing? Now, are we ready to awaken within this dream? This is what it takes. So this reconvention event is on offer to us in the next 2 or 3 weeks coming up. And smart humans and oracles and seers and shaman all around the world will be plugging in to this incredible immanent flame that is upshifting on that day. I'll be in the epicenter of where that's taking place in the world, actually in a place called the Zone of Silence outside Durango in Mexico. That's the epicenter of where this inverse umbilical becomes activated on the day. So the reason why I'm illustrating this point, Dr. Anna, is because you would think that in an enlightened civilization, we would be celebrating to the rafters the fact that we have another extraordinary benediction of the grace of God, the Magdalene, which is actually going to be activating on that day. To those of us who peg our consciousness to it and who ideate this new earth and this kingdom of heaven on earth, our ideas will now become augmented and manifested at a rate of knots you cannot possibly imagine, simply because we took advantage of this huge inhalation of grace. So these are the things that we should be educating our kids about. We should be taking our attention off the screens. I've not looked at a television set for well over 20 years. I haven't even looked at one. So I haven't looked at a clock since 1997, 1st of August. I refuse to look at a clock. So when we remove our indentureship from time, which is to say, the Cronus, the titan that devours its own young, Cronus, the crowns of Europe, the titans. This is all written into the language of the invisible masters, the Nephilim, the fallen angels. We are the Adamites, the return of the Adamite, the angelic human. Hey, it's all good news.
That's awesome. That's just absolutely fantastic. And I agree. I think that, the potential of the human is unlimited. There's such a push now to fuse humans with artificial intelligence now that general AI is fusing with quantum computing. But what people are not understanding is, our brain is the greatest quantum supercomputer ever that can multidimensionally connect, and we can download extraordinary information and knowledge. And I think that people need to really understand that, but it's all about like releasing the shackles of the old paradigms. As doctors, basically everything that we were taught is a lie. As humans in society, the entire slave caste system that was made. But I do think that we need to reconnect to life itself, because what they're endeavoring to do, which is to digitize every cell, that also changes the vibrational harmony of all life on Earth. And we have to, say no to that. And people need to understand that you cannot proceed without being destroyed, because you're attacking nature, and nature will get rid of the parasite who's doing that.
Always does and always will. The geometry of the living moment is perfect always in all ways. And when one begins to recognize that, one can actually move into coherence with one's own divine mantle and begin to affect the outcome and manifest the change. So let's just look momentarily at those isotope frequencies coming off all of this diabolical cacophony of bad chemistry that is raining down upon us, and it's in our diets, and it's in our primary water, contaminated all the soil bed of the earth. So the entire biome of this earth has been ransacked, has already been fully artificially weaponized. That's a fact. And now that is being also coupled with this electromagnetic frequency interventionism, which is a very, very advanced alien technology of installing the program through the ethers. Now that we've weaponized all living systems, installing the program through the ethers is how it's taking place. Just this week alone, there is a delightful story going viral about hundreds of Palestinians all had the same vision at the same time that Jesus reached out to them. And so they've all converted to Jesus, to Christianity in the last few days. And this is being heralded now by idiot Christians all around the world as being a great revelation of God, that a few hundred Palestinians have all taken to the streets saying they all saw Jesus and heard Jesus. Now, I was warning some years ago that this is exactly what's going to be taking place. It's called V2K technology. It's voice to skull. 5, 6, 7 years ago, let me not exaggerate, 2018, yes, 6, 7 years ago, I was taking testimony from countless veterans. I say I, within the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, our Judicial Commission into weaponization of the biosphere, our Judicial Commission into human trafficking and child sex abuse. We took testimony from multiple people in the religious orders, like nuns. This is a controllable demographic, incidentally, for this kind of experimentation, and for military personnel, veterans, who themselves 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago were being used as lab rats as part of these experiments being sponsored by the deep state. This is going back to Agent Orange all the way up to today. This voice-to-skull technology is CIA technology. It's alien technology. It's part of the evil covenant that was done with the Theta and Zeta alien engagement in the 1930s, 40s, and so on. And so that technology transfer that was done at that time has now gained full traction. They've laid the groundwork for it. They've managed to fleece trillions and trillions of dollars worth of taxes of idiot humans over the last half a century, and manufacture the apparatus, the delivery mechanism for this new Luciferic age, this age of 1,000 years where Satan or Lucifer will sit upon the throne in the Temple of Solomon. Of course, that then raises the whole specter of the House of Rothschild rebuilding the Temple of Solomon in Israel. Curious engagement that. But this is all part of this Sabbatean black magic and high Wicca witchcraft that is happening. None of that has any effect whatsoever on the human being who consciously revokes the permissions for intervention. When we recognize that all of these, whether it's a synthetic molecule being injected into the arm, or it is the Catholic Church, or it is government and the IRS demanding that we pay personal income taxes, mind you. Personal income tax is a crime against yourself. Business tax is absolutely perfect. Go ahead and pay them. I do. Personal income tax, not on my dead body, because personal income tax, A, is unconstitutional, it's illegal, it's illicit, it's unlawful. Statutorily, it has been made something which is essential, mandatory, but that's all lies. It's a confluence of lies and fear and dread that allows people to take the knee to Caesar and render unto Caesar their coin. What is the coin? The coin is simply a totem of your own time and motion and life force, meaning to say you are offering yourself up for harvest to Moloch. So libertarianism, liberal intellectualism, the ruling class of the world, who are the enablers of the satanic real status quo without even knowing it, the Robert De Niros of this world, the kind of Hollywood woke bullshit echelon of human beings, the best educated, most talented amongst us, and the most comfortable amongst us are the enablers of the satanic status quo. And Middle Earth, Middle America, Middle Mozambique, Middle Ecuador is the one who pays the price.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely agree with you. And one of the things that is challenging now is, a lot of people are hoping for a savior in the political arena, but what we're really seeing is it's very, very challenging because if people are not even acknowledging, for example, the biological weapons, or there's no really open conversation regarding what is going on, that's also very challenging. And so this idea that we've been fed for the last few years that there's someone coming to rescue us. What is your view on that? Because I've sort of, come to my own conclusions about that, and this is why I keep fighting until the miracle happens.
So this is another beautiful conundrum. I'm glad you asked the question, because all this does is, again, illustrate and underscore what I've been saying, is that false light worship, the adulation of false idols, is money, time, government, Donald Trump, or whoever the hell it is that you want to vote for. So these are all idols that manifest, celebrity idols, hip hop artists and Hollywood art. All of this is idol. Taylor Swift is a classic example of a Saturnian, satanic Wicca idol that is manufactured. Whether she's complicit or not, it remains to be a question. I don't know. I suspect she is. But the point is that Taylor Swift perfectly exemplifies a satanic idol. Madonna perfectly exemplifies a satanic idol, and Beyonce and so on. It's a curiosity, is it not, that they all wear the costumes of Moloch and horned beasts, and the iconography around their billion-dollar enterprise plays perfectly into Saturnian and satanic iconography. Very curious that. And that's because oftentimes there are handlers behind these people orchestrating these idols. You see this behind me? That's
Yes.
me being hacked, just so you know. It's nothing to do with me. Someone's hacked some people, whoever hacked my computer, and now they're setting off. I think it's good people in the intelligence community, because whenever I'm saying something that really resonates well, they're sending off fireworks or balloons and so on. It's very funny. Nothing I can do about it. I apologize. But the point about the iconography or idolatry is that we have been tempered or cultivated into this civilizational state of abeyance, where we are always in a state of abeyance, on the back foot. And because we can only be rescued from ourselves by the Catholic Church, or by a government handout, or by medical intervention, or by whatever it is, okay? The psychiatrist and the psychologist. So third-party intervention has been orchestrated into the psychometry of our culture, civilizationally, where we all feel less than as an individual, and even as a community and a society. That's been stripped away. So we don't feel safe as an individual. We don't feel safe as a community, as a family, as a society. We are always subject to third-party intervention, up to and including the bread and the milk on your shelves, and the blood in your hospitals, and everything that you need to survive in the matrix, in the kill grid, in the city, in Sodom and Gomorrah. And so we're back again to this theme. Do you remain in Sodom and Gomorrah and simply complain about the fact that you're being controlled and that we need to be redeemed by Donald Trump or by whatever? Or do you, as a living son and daughter of God, a living man and woman of the living soil, do you step up within yourself, engage relationship with the Atman, the divine flame, and then say, I am going to leave Sodom and Gomorrah consciously. I'm going to revoke the contract. I'm going to move back to the sacred soil and set up my family, my livelihood, my future in a place which is in a state of grace and a return to nature. That's really the line in the sand that has now emerged as the necessity. That's why people are bailing on cities, running the hell from them. Idiots are going to cities, and enlightened people are making provision to disentangle themselves from the parent corporation, because the parent corporation does one thing. Historically, it delivers us the atomic bomb and the synthetic molecule, and it will kill us.
Yes, absolutely, well said. And I think that getting rid of some of this technology that is sold to us as a comfort, but that it really is part of the weaponry, the intra-body area network that connects with your cell phone and then uploads your information to the cloud, so that that your digital twin can be created there. So I mean, I got rid of my cell phone, and it is possible to live without one, just fine. So I think that that the idea of self-sovereignty, of living your own truth, regardless of what the pushback is and who calls you names or whatever. Because I'm always saying, you may be listening to The Walking Dead, and do you really want to follow that path? I do believe that there will still be a lot of cataclysmic upheaval coming on, because the earth, as a living being that has been molested, it wants to heal its source, and eventually this is going to backfire. All the HARP, the geoengineering, all of this. So my hope is that as we progress and we continue to collaborate with like-minded individuals, and that we are proclaiming our truth, which really is still it is still considered by some people as insanity or whatnot, but it is becoming self-evident that what you have been discussing is clearly the truth. And my question is, disclosure, for example. You are absolutely in that community, and for years, we've been told, oh, humanity isn't ready. The Israelis have said humanity isn't ready. It's gonna, create problems. But even now, you can see that people are actually discussing that, oh, the shots contain alien technology. So I think that at some point the barriers have to be broken. Is it us that are the disclosure versus, some governments that will always continue to keep the lid on? Or what is your view? Is it really that we have to break away from all of it, and we are the change, the new earth that we want to see?
I think that's a great question. And yes, I mean, one could be fixated on the basement of the Vatican Library or the Smithsonian Institute or the British Museum, and we could be wondering what lies beneath the Skull and Bones headquarters in Yale. We could wonder how many of these ancient Tatarian edifices, like the Washington, the Capitol Hill, and the Vatican itself, and many of these great big buildings and constructions around the world, what lies beneath them. We can do that. The Getty Museum, all of these things. What's beneath the tunnel systems? Well, I've been engaged long enough with military intelligence people, and I've studied the forensics, and I've studied film footage and photographic footage painstakingly connected to alien bases and so on in different parts of the world, and archaeological discoveries and revelations that have emerged in the last 20 odd years but have not been disclosed to the public. I've been pulled into that stuff in some of the work that we've done in the last number of years. And all of that is part of revelation, but it's a kind of explicit archaeo-cosmological revelation. But it's not the real thing. What you just said taps into the real thing. The real revelation is the immanent flame that reemerges within the atom seed of the human being, meaning to say the remembrance and then the reemergence of the template of the angelic human, because that was the genesis point of this aspect of creation. Was we all came as the Redeemer. We are all aspects of the Messiah, the Christ. Every actualized human being is the de facto, de jure aspect of the Christ, the Messiah, the Redeemer. And so, yes, we are that thing. And we, as we cast light inwardly, we enlighten all of that shadow, that shade, that civilizational and shade that goes back billions of years. And through this phenomenon called linguistic wave genetics, which was tapped into by the late, great Dr. Gariev in Russia a number of years ago, who we were lucky to engage with, the linguistic wave genetics activates the ancestral blood song and then redeems it. So we can heal lineage. We can heal all of the blood cultism and the arcane trauma patterns that exist and are encodified in the blood song, the ancestral blood song, the awakening now of the prophet. I was just with the Hopi. They gave me this beautiful benediction. The blue corn of the Hopi elders was given to me. I regard this as the greatest gift I've ever been given in my life. And I have some beautiful gifts. This is the same as this, but the blue corn is simpler, but far more poetic. I'm seeing what's happening all around the world with the indigenous peoples. I'm moving around and intentionally engaging conversations with them and going and dancing in the mud and sitting there. Only yesterday, I was sitting in the jungle with an individual who's regarded as the greatest shaman in Mexico, who flew in here to the New Earth Sanctuary ground with a clairvoyant Mayan woman, unbelievable woman who's just connected to the elementals. And all she is communicating with these spirit forms and elementals and telluric intelligences and the guardians of the jungle and the skies, and bona fide, 100% bona fide. And I was sitting for hours with them in our land, as they were communicating the messaging to me from the spirit of the Laguna and from Gaia and the spirit of the inner earth vacuums and the dielectric universe. And that for me is a language I fully understand now, which a number of years ago I would have poo-pooed and gone, oh, please, please. I was too liberal intellectual at that time. Once I relinquished my false light adherence to what I thought I knew and simply fell back into serendipity and the grace of unknowing and the wisdom of insecurity, you are caught by the grace of God in that place. And then the stories that come to you and the people that come to you and the revelations that are shown to you are palpable, and actually you can see them. So we are now at this transition point anyway, as Adamites, we are reconnecting with the angelic template. The ancestral blood song is everything to do with it. We have to pay attention to that. And Dr. Anna, that is why there is a war against human blood and against the human genetics, is precisely because the Saturnian, satanic, Molechite, Baphomet worshipping proxy class of subhuman mother who rules still in Vatican, DC, and in part the portals of power, they have pretty much lost the grip almost entirely. My categorical understanding is that the imperial draconian lizard or reptilian aspect has already been ejected fully from the earth plane. I've had this corroborated to my full satisfaction. So the imperial reptilian element has been removed as of 2021. It's not here. But the proxy class of subhumans that have been proliferated and culturally engineered into the human family, that class of troglodyte still exists. They are the ones who are more or less running the machine still. And that machine is still trundling towards many of us, and it's weaponized and it's very dangerous. But here's the thing. The human being is the angelic human, and the actualized human being is the angelic human. And every angel and every god and every demigod and demiurge and every devil and every demon in the entire omniverse takes the knee to the angelic human, because they have to, because the angelic human represents the Jacob's ladder, the return home to source. No one gets back without going through, in that sense, the Jacob's ladder of the angelic human. And it's now the resurrection of that template in the human being that is being broadcast through our linguistic wave genetics into the field at large. The biosphere is thriving, absolutely thriving, despite the fact that we are under systemic and endemic weaponized attack. It's because there is this invisible war taking place between the vibral light and the fallen light of Atlantis. So where we position our consciousness on that axiomatic point or that nexus point determines whether we are meek of heart and thereby inherit the earth, or if we simply move into space dust through the laws of entropy. So for me, it's all alchemy. It's living alchemy. It's the living testament, the living gospel. It's the living witness. We should be present in the here and now, as you are one of the great voices in our day to actually raise the specter of the scientific, forensically evidenced threat against our species. Yes, that must be spoken to, but where we place our attention beyond that knowing is where the outcome will prevail. And that, I believe, is where good humans are, without any question of doubt, winning the war, so to speak.
And I absolutely agree with you. And the idea of why I wanted to explain about that this weapon actually can affect the soul and I've had personal experience of what it means to be attacked by this, is that in connection with our own Holy Spirit and moving inwards, we can cleanse that aspect and that influence, and then really reconnect with who we are. And that ultimately, when we speak that power of truth, and we are unequivocally, one of the things that people need to understand is, you cannot just be a little bit of a liar here and then a bunch of truth here, because the little lie over here has a vibratory frequency that's your Achilles heel. And so we must live who we are fully, and let the chips fall where they may. And to have the courage to do that is very, very important. And that ultimately the program that was set into the C-19 bioweapon, which I believe is on the quantum level, exactly what you're explaining, on the level of Goliath, to be able to affect not just thoughts, but also the human soul. With will, the infusion of will. Will is divine and free choice is divine. And that in itself will bring in a connection that will make us immune against whatever they throw against us. And so the spiritual awakening of all of us is super important to continue the revelation and the healing of it all, not just of us internally, but that will then heal the external world.
Well, we have to disenchant ourselves and disentangle ourselves from all of the white noise, and we have to step back and take a look at this realm within which we find ourselves incarnated. And we need to be humble enough and meek in heart enough to be able to go, okay, well, what am I looking at? I'm looking at a realm of duality. I've somehow find myself incarnated into a manifest 3D temporal realm of duality. Everything is made up of black, white, night, day, sun, moon, male, female, Democrat, Republican, electrical, magnetic. Everything is a confluence of opposites, an oscillation of opposite elements and forces at play. And then somewhere in that cacophony, that chaos, we find ourselves emerge as sentient beings, having to navigate now that kingdom, that checkerboard of the kingdom of the devil, which is exactly what the realm of duality is. That's why it is there, the cauldron of creation. It is the greatest, in that sense, university in the cosmos. So here we find ourselves. We simply need to weigh the fact that the human temple, the human being, is the temple, is the crucible, is the Solomon's key, is the indivisible line between the black, the white, the good, the evil. So it's all playing out at the fractal level in me here now. That's what cancer is. That's what depression is. That's what heartbreak is. That's what, a manifest accident on the street is. It's all connected at the fractal level to the trial of separation and the degree to which I, as the individual aspect of God forgotten to itself, is navigating that journey of duality. So obviously, we should begin to suspend our adherence and entanglement with either the good or the bad. So this is where most people get very confused. Nietzsche, the great Friedrich Nietzsche, was the first to say, beyond good and evil is where we find the transcendent point. And of course, he was absolutely correct. And then people like Adolf Hitler picked up on Friedrich Nietzsche and inverted that and took that to a kind of diabolical sense. And the Aleister Crowleys of this world, took it to in a way to the very negative Saturnian outcome, which is free will is everything. Whatever I say is acceptable. Whatever I do is acceptable. No, it's not. But there is a state of grace in life in the living moment, which is why I refer to it as the living gospel, or the state of witness. The state of witness in the here and now is simply where I take my throne of actualized self. I am seated fully in my Solomon's throne, or my throne of Magdalene, however I wanted to choose. And I simply, in that space, suspend any permissions. I withdraw all permissions, and I suspend all judgment and condemnation. So when you do that, if you can do that, the most remarkable magic begins to happen. You are now doing as the great Nazarene master urged us, thou shalt not judge. and I agree with this absolutely. Don't condemn and don't judge. There's nothing to judge. Everything is perfect always and always. Everything that manifests in the field is divinely anointed, divinely appointed. And if you're witnessing it, it's precisely because you are the one orchestrating it. You are the epicenter of that hologram. So how can you possibly be a victim? How can you possibly be afraid and be a victim in that case? So that's what the state of grace is, a state of owning the now and saying, here I am, I find myself here. And now what I will do is take that state of witness, and in that state of witness, move into coherence with my Atman, with the Godhead, and allow for the remembrance of the majesty of the angelic. And then that creature starts to manifest, starts to come out and take away and erase the old sullied human that was addicted to pornography or to nicotine or to fentanyl or to alcohol or to blaming mother and father or blaming the Catholic Church. All of that goes into abeyance, and the true nature of who you are emerges. The divine comedy starts to reveal itself. So you can only find kind of joy in how absurd the theater of life is. At the same time, a magical thing happens. Your plasma field begins to augment, and that creates protections, natural, innate, intrinsic, inherent, immanent protections are afforded. Now you can walk through the valley of death fearing no ill. Now you can walk as Daniel into the lion's den. So these are technologies I'm talking about, Dr. Anna. These are technologies that every one of us are born with. So that weaponized environment, Morgellon syndrome and nano-replicating diodes coming out of people's eyeballs, and the digital twin in the basement of IBM and the NSA and all of the diabolical witchery that's being orchestrated and planned against every one of us, that exists, yes, but it's part of the artifice. It's part of the false light matrix. And so long as I have redacted, revoked, rescinded, and retracted the contract, they have no thrall over me, none. I can only but emerge into the light of this, what I call the new earth. So again, I come back to this. It's all good. But we have to situate our consciousness on that indivisible line, take full ownership of our lives and of our destinies and of our incarnations, stop blaming, and the fear goes away, actualize self, and then start to manifest the outcome and determine the outcome. And I think that's the actual key, is that once we're in a state of grace and fearlessness, which is to say a state of timelessness, we enter into a grace point in our incarnation where we actually can think, ideate, imagine, dream, and that manifests in real time. That it goes back to what the ancients and the shamanic peoples have always urged us, simply to dream wisely.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. And I do think that as we're dreaming wisely and then engaging the reality that we have created, this is an action. The God is an action, a creation. It is not just a withdrawing from life, sitting in your cave, meditating for 40 years. No, it is the enormity of now, romancing the unknown, literally, in everyday creation and the adventure of exploring all of the possibilities of what it is to be a divine human being, which is endless. You don't need artificial intelligence when you go from there, because nature and the divine creation is so brilliant. You don't need a brain chip, and people need to really understand that. They want to be jump started, through technology. The greatest jump start ever is God.
Yes, and I would say that the greatest technology is the angelic human, the human body, the template. It's all in here. It's the blood song in our DNA, which once we have removed the sullied false light aspect within ourselves, once we've redeemed that shade within the blood song, what emerges is the angelic template, because that's what pre-existed. That's what self-reveals, self-fulfills, self-manifests. But only once we're in that state of grace are we able to invoke that blood song into its true blood song, moving back back before time to the Genesis point, the Alpha Omega point, where we were in perfect conjugation with the divine. And then we emerged through multiple expressions, multiple incarnations. And here we find ourselves still carrying the echo of so many traumas and so many ancient traumas. So redeeming ourselves from those traumas becomes the critical point, or the critical piece towards emancipation. And then once we've done that, we can determine the outcomes and begin to anchor patterns of perfection into this imperfect, sullied template. But it's happening in real time now. For the first time, we're actually able to begin to dream wisely, as I mentioned a moment ago, and see the manifest outcome, not instantaneously. That's still yet to come. We're still a little way off that so-called fifth density capacitance, where we're so cleansed and so coherent at the level of the geometry of our being and the geometry of our blood, the geometry of our cells and our atoms would become in such divine conjugation that as we move into a state of grace, we look out there, we manifest instant outcomes. That's how we used to terraform worlds as the gods of old. And that's what's being remembered now in this realm of expression. That God capacitance, that God spark is within each of us. Each of us were gifted that spark to take away into the cauldron of creation through multiple incarnations. Here we are, allowed to emerge as a chorus, a consensual chorus of divine sparks, to now move that together through the fellowship of man, which is the true currency of this earth, of this plane. And with that morphogenetic upshift, we will indeed meet with the spiral of ascension and hit that ascension event. And the ascension event, as I've been arguing for a number of years now, is a biological event every bit as much as it is an esoteric or enigmatic, esoteric spiritual event. And when we recognize that we are moving through a transmogrification, in a sense, transmutation, transcendental transmutation event of all biological physicality is moving into its higher resonance patterns as well. So we will in our lifetime move, because we've already moved beyond the fiction of time in that sense, as the collective unconscious, the superluminal morphogenetic meta-consciousness activates fully in the coming few short years. We will see an activation of the noosphere that opens up the galactic portal, so to speak, first contact with the benevolent races of our progenitor species. That's all happening in the next few short years between now and 2032, absolutely 100%. And then between 2032 and 2046, we have this final movement towards what you would loosely regard or refer to as a ascension, vertical ascension event. So all of that is going to be happening real time. Biologically, we're going to live through it. That's never happened before. And that, incidentally, explains the insanity of COVID, the insanity of the last 100 years of the Rockefeller-Rothschild intervention through the Sabbatean logic into medicine and into saturating every biological life form on Earth with synthetic molecules to try to prevent that recoherence with the divine immanent upshift. Because the synthetic intervention, rather like the messenger RNA that's been programmed to transport these little anti-God messages into the cells of the human. Very clever technology, mind you, but not half as clever as the activated or actualized human temple. And that's the fun bit. I'm certainly finding it fun. I don't take any supplements, incidentally. I don't even take my own. I manufacture some. I don't, because I'm finding the cells in my body are resonating at this time in such a perfect pitch. I feel really good about this real immanent emergence. But Dr. Anna, I am just so excited by the fact that we've reached this apocalyptic end of time cycle, and that 2024 into 2025, midsummer this year to midsummer next year, for some is going to be an apocalypse, for others it's going to be absolutely the first real step towards revelation and ascension. And I urge your audience, I urge everyone to reckon with the fact that every living moment of every day can be attributed or can be directed or oriented toward either frequency X and above, heart frequency and above, or frequency X and below, which is to say fear, constriction, and all that comes with that shit show. So it's now a choice. And each of us can manifest an entire holographic field of reality in concordance with the pitch of our human heart. It's a beautiful thing.
Fantastic. I just want to say thank you so much for this absolutely brilliant and enlightened conversation. Would you tell our audience where can they find more about you? Because I'm certain they want to follow your work.
Oh, well, I think there's enough portals and websites out there. I'm not sure I'm not even very good at keeping them up to date because I'm on the run the whole time. And I do have a very big and beautiful team all around the world in all these different organizations and initiatives. And we're kind of higgledy-piggledy. In some ways, we're coherent. In other ways, we're very disorganized. I would suggest that anyone interested in the hard, kind of more philosophical consciousness science aspect could go to thelazarus-initiative.com because that's where we have the symposiums that you've been a part of, and we do some great work with some of the world's greatest scientists and thought leaders, consciousness leaders. That's thelazarus-initiative.com. Otherwise, go to sashastone.com and through with Sasha with a C, S-A-C-H-A. And then that is a springboard to the International Tribunal, to the New Earth Horizon, to the New Earth Pharmacy with an F. The newearthpharmacy.com is the big work I've been involved with this last year, something I actually want to reach out to you about in the next few days. So I will do that. But that's the microbiological work we've been doing with living saints in the military medical science establishment who are gifting some real quantum leap forward in microbiology. We've just hit the shores of America in the last couple of weeks with the weaponized E. coli microbiological supplement and the one that addresses the so-called spike protein replication. And incidentally, Dr. Anna, that's a conversation I would love to have with you at some point because I was on the phone this morning with our lead scientist, Dr. Nicolescu in Romania, who is this extraordinary woman who worked closely with Dr. Luc Montagnier for 20 years, actually. And she speaks pretty appalling English, but we have a complete love affair. I'm the one taking her work to the world now, and over the last year, under the protection of our military intelligence friends in Eastern Europe. But I can tell you that this morning for 2 hours, I was on the phone with Dr. Nicolescu and my New Earth Pharmacy team, trying again to elicit out of her explanation of the distinction between the terrain theory and the germ theory, because actually that's a dialectic that's still going on in the medical science world and in the truth movement, and people don't understand. The kiss point is between the two, that the weaponized germs, is the virus doesn't in and of itself exist in a sense, but the weaponized one does. It's a very complex subject, but I would love to invite you onto a science panel to discuss that incredible dialectic.
And I am so proud that I'm ahead of your game, that I already have a contact with your team, and that the conversation with Dr. Nicolescu is already in process. So, and I speak Romanian, so there's no problem. So
Fantastic.
yes, we're all going for it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Dr. Anna Maria Mihalcea. I am an internal medicine physician with a PhD in pathology and 20 years of clinical experience. I've written a book that's called Light Medicine, A New Paradigm, the Science of Light, Spirit, and Longevity.